This call, we're going to be focusing mostly on the February picture in the 2020 growers calendar. It shows several rows of strawberry blossoms. And so this picture was taken by Mike, I believe, Mike Bulcher from Ohio. It's one of his customers' fields. This customer is on the call as well, Russ, and I'll get you to introduce yourself in a minute, Russ. So Jim and Zach Holmer they're on their way home actually, but they're traveling as usual quite a bit this winter, and I'll be taking over for the most part the conference calls.
Hey, any chance you can hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you, Mike.
Ain't this technology great?
When it works.
I was on here and I could hear you guys talking, but you couldn't hear me talking.
I think Carl.
I hear you now.
Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we'll loop you into the conversation then. I think maybe I'll get you to introduce yourself a little bit and introduce Russ, and then Russ can kind of talk about the picture, talk about what he's been seeing with the strawberries. How's that sound?
Yeah, sure. Well, last time I was on this call, we had trouble down here I'm at Louisville at the National Farm Machinery Show. So I don't know if it's just a location and way my phone's working down here, but anyway, we'll try to get through it. And like I said, my name's Mike Bulcher. I'm the Growers District Manager for not the whole Ohio and Indiana area, but a small section of it here. And Russell Hobbs, who's a guest here on tonight, is a grower that we got started using the Growers product a couple years ago, and he's in Versailles area of Indiana, which is the southern part. And he's got the picture of the strawberries on the calendar for the month of February. Russell been using us 2 years now. I think the first year that we had talked, I'm pretty sure he met us down here at the show, and I don't know for sure if I actually had talked to him then or if it was even about strawberries. But anyway, Russell, do you remember how you come across Growers?
Yeah, I was at the Farm Machinery Show, I think, with your dad. Was the first contact with it. We didn't jump right in. I thought I would save money and not use the Growers product and use something cheaper, and it just didn't work. And so I broke down and bought some Growers, and it worked really well. And so they're not all alike, even though they may say they're alike, you know. And
hey, Russ,
but it worked real well for us. Yeah.
What didn't work with the other product? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, the full air spray just didn't affect them. I saw no effect of it. And we full air spray our strawberries. We kind of tested it on our strawberries, but now we use it on our row crops now also. But I didn't jump right into everything, and we tried it on the strawberries and really liked the way it made the plants grow. And I believe if you've got a healthy plant, you'll get a good crop out of it. And also the health of the plant keeps it from getting disease and bugs and everything is bad also. And but we tried the Growers, and it just made our plants taller than they had ever been. And we think they produced really well and actually could lower our costs by doing it that way with the Growers program. Yeah.
I remember when I first met Russell, and he asked me to bring some Growers down there. He wasn't there, and I brought him some Growers in a little green book. And you know, I might have marked the page. I don't remember exactly how I did it now, but anyway, when I got back home, I went out and seen a few more other people. And when I got back home, he had called me one afternoon, or it might have even been one morning, but anyway, he called, and he was trying to figure out, put a gallon an acre a week on, how he was going to go about doing that with his backpack sprayer. And he had it figured out that by walking these rows of strawberries, that he would put 2.5 gallon on, I think it was. Do you remember that, Russ?
Yep, I remember
He
it.
was,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, the first thing I thought was I was impressed that somebody was reading that book, because I don't know how many times we had dropped that book off, and people call up and they ask questions, and very seldom did I ever get somebody to read that book right off the bat. So I was pretty impressed, and I thought, well, he was explaining some things to me. I think that he could get this thing figured out. So, yeah, I remember I told you also that you was asking me what you thought you'd see the first year using growers, and I said, well, it might work out pretty good, but I was pretty sure that if you sprayed them after they was done bearing fruit, that you'd have even a better year next year. And the other thing I remember one day talking to you later on after the season was over, he was explaining to me about them strawberries, how nice they looked. They just wouldn't die as it got into colder weather. You remember that, Russ? Hello? You guys hear me?
I can hear you, Mike.
Yeah,
I'm getting so much noise. I'm getting so much noise on here. I can't tell.
Yeah, I'm getting quite a bit of noise
too.
too. Yeah.
I'm getting it too.
But one comment I remember you making to me, Russ, was whenever they got done picking them strawberries, how bad they looked afterwards. It's a you pick strawberry, and you got like about what, 3.5 acres there?
No, just a half acre. Yeah, just a half acre, small patch. Okay, and but we at the end of the season they usually look pretty bad. Just all the stress of the season and all, and the plants just looked better than they'd ever looked at the end of the season. And I attributed that to the full air spraying of growers, since that was the only thing we did differently than we had done before. And and over time and trials and everything, we got to spraying more often. Like instead of spraying once a week, spray twice a week. Even if you only use half as much, just do it more often. And kind of the idea of spoon feeding it, and so we got to spraying them twice a week instead of once a week. And remember, we're spraying these with a backpack by hand. It takes a while to walk over a half an acre a row at a time spraying, and but it worked really good. And we tried to do all our spraying at night or in the late evening, so we didn't have any volatilization of the nitrogen, and we just walked over them late and actually did it in the dark sometimes, but usually try to finish up about dark, and try to pick the overcast days as well to do it if we could.
Yeah. Do you remember if you had any trouble with your water and spraying it when you got started using it?
Oh, yeah. I don't remember exactly. You and I had talked, Mike and I had talked a little bit about it, and then I learned about it's like everything. I just learned a little piece here, a little piece there, and you finally get more of them put together, and found out the water quality was real important. So we got to saving rainwater, and that I believe was real important as well, because our water has a lot of calcium in it, and which is what we're wanting, but it hurts the effectiveness of the grower's product when you have that kind of water. So we've been collecting rainwater ever since we learned that, and that makes a big difference too. One of the things I think we did wrong that we're still in the process of fixing is if I had to do over, I would put a large amount of lime down, high calcium lime, before we even started. And we put a decent amount. I mean, we have put down like 6 tons of lime to the acre over a few years here, 2 or 3 years here. But I still intend to put another 4 tons this year, like on our row crops. We have wheat out, and after the wheat harvest, we plan to put 4 more ton of high calcium lime on, and then drill it to beans, and which will make a total of like 10 ton of lime over a few year period. But I don't think you can hurt your crop with too much lime. Okay, it's just my opinion. But we have on.
Yeah, this thing keeps cutting out on me. You guys still with me?
I hear you, Mike.
I don't hear anybody right now.
Wow.
Hey, Mike. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It seems like Russ and I got muted.
I try just about everybody, especially when you first get them started, if they can get some source of rainwater, creek water, or spring water or something, to try to use that right off the bat, just because 9 times out of 10, especially in our area with this hard water, that's a big problem. And if somebody's not familiar with working with trying to acidify it, that can also be a problem. So down there in that area, I got a couple guys that's doing either rainwater or spring water. It's working out pretty good, and they're seeing good results getting the product sprayed on that way. In light of what we learned at our annual meeting this year, sometimes these acidifiers don't quite do the job of getting that balance out of the water where you get the hardness tied up and the product can get in there. Of course, they did that newsletter story here this last go around where they kind of showed the effect on the leaf after you get a rainstorm, where the leaf can actually push that back out. So I still believe rainwater is the best and safest product to use for getting your product or the grower's product in that plant, because it's really a pretty full safe method of getting that in there. Yeah. So that seems to be working about the best anyway. But yeah, me and Russell, of course, we always have some pretty good conversations. He likes to talk about the neighbors around there and kind of what they believe and are doing. And of course, we're being down here at the show, we see a lot of that going on down here. A lot of them falling over themselves trying to get over to this stuff that they can't afford and probably never will own in their lifetime, but they seem to be really interested in that rather than something like what we've got and how it can help the farmer achieve his success. So, it's always very enlightening to us, very overwhelming sometimes. You get somebody and they really go with it. And as far as that picture in the calendar, I got I think it was a text last spring early, where, Russell, if you want to talk about this, you guys maybe had foliar fed them or something, and they was starting to bloom, and you left for the weekend, and then come back, and that's how you noticed like the blooms there in that picture.
Oh yeah, like anything, I mean, you're not going to get super drastic results just overnight, but we would foliar spray them, and we went away for a couple of days, I think, or something. I don't remember, and came back and saw a huge difference in them. It's like trying to watch your child grow. He doesn't appear to grow, but if you don't see him for a week, then they'll look different. And it's the same way on your crops. When you look at them every day and you're looking for a change, it's very hard to see it because it's small, but it's continually happening. And our plants just grew taller and were stronger, and they produced very well. And it just made
the blooms. The blooms.
Oh yeah, and they put zillion blooms out. Yeah, that's exactly right. I believe that's all based on, though, having a healthy plant, which is what the grower's product did. You're feeding that plant, and then there was a decent amount of high calcium lime in the soil that was put on. And after each season, when we get done, we spread more lime over the existing berries there. That's a perennial crop, so we just put more lime on it, and we don't think, at least we haven't come to the point where we think you can get too much on. Now, it may be possible, but we don't think we've done it yet. And I would advise anyone to err on the heavy side instead of the light side, okay? And because we did it lightly at first, and I wish we had done it heavier to start with. But we're planning on putting 4 more ton on all of our farm this year after we harvest the wheat, Lord willing. And but that total will have come up to about 10 ton to the acre over 2 or 3 years, I think. Yeah, and but we really think that's important. What it's done on our other, I should say a couple things about where we live. We're 25 miles from the Ohio River, north of it, and we're also about 25 or 30 miles east of it. In other words, the river comes around us. We're clear down by near Kentucky and near Ohio. And
you're kind of west of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm west of the Ohio River, but I'm also north of the Ohio River. Okay, we're down in the corner. Yes, and we get about 50 inches of rain a year, way too much rain, and a lot of storms come up the Ohio River. And when we bought this farm, there was 2 or 3 acres out in our big field that we could never get to grow a crop, and we did some work on it, a little bit of land playing, but we got that one of the side effects of putting all that lime on was it changed I don't know if this is the right word, the porosity or the tilth of the soil to where we think it drains so much better. I mean, we've been getting huge amounts of rain and no water is standing. And this was a field where we had 8% of it wouldn't produce a crop because it was too wet. And whenever you look at ground that's real slick and shiny and wet looking, in my opinion, the problem is you don't have enough calcium in that soil, and that's fixable with high calcium lime if you put that on there.
Mm-hmm. That's usually the characteristic of a high mag soil. Like high mag clay is the stuff that's greasy and sticks to your boots.
Yep, slippery and grow an inch as you walk across it.
Yeah.
Did you have any
it really, it really wouldn't. Since we put this large amount of lime on, now we've done a little bit of land planting and some other work as well to help it, but since we put a fairly large amount of lime on it, we don't have water standing in the way that we did before. And we've had some real good tests. We've had huge amounts of rain, and I'm not saying there's no water out there, but it's draining off much better. Our ground also has a fragipan about 7 inches down. It's about a 3.5-inch gray strip of clay, I call it, that is a natural fragipan. And we take a subsoil and try to break that up every couple of years anyway, or 3 years maybe, and that keeps the water draining internally. Try to make the ground drain internally. That's the way it's actually supposed to work.
It sounds like that ground's not tiled, is it?
It's not tiled. I
read
I really don't believe in tiling. I believe in fixing your ground. Okay, I'm not saying tiling won't work and isn't worth the money spent or it's not effective, but if you can fix it by fixing the ground where the tiling is not needed, then it not only saves that cost, but you're also not getting fertilizer down the streams and into the oceans and everywhere, which is kind of a issue now. And I got that from reading. Michael gave me a copy of Dr. Tejan's book, and I read it, and that's what he said about it. And I thought, that makes perfect sense. If you just fix your ground, which can be done with enough high calcium lime, and it'll do it. We've done it on some ground. We had a spot along our driveway. We could never get it to grow anything. It was always so wet, and we put a gob of lime on it, and I'm telling you, it's just completely different. And But it's one of those test strips where we put more than 10 ton to the acre. But I'll tell you what, if you do enough, it'll fix it. Okay, and I think it's important to, and we haven't done this as much as I intend to in the future. When you put that lime on, if you can subsoil it down in and get the lime down into the soil deeper, it will just help it that much more. And soil is supposed to be 50% soil, 25% water, and 25% air. And that air comes from porosity. And if a ground is tight and slick and no air in there, it's suffocating the crop. Okay, is what it's doing.
I'm not
Are you there?
No. You always claim that the roots are the lungs of the plant.
Yeah,
they have
and
to
they need
do gas exchange.
Yeah, yep, that's right. The air is real important.
What I was going to ask you.
Important for the soil microbes too. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, that's all right. I said what I was going to ask Russ if there was any comments on his strawberries different than what he had before. I mean, I see the strawberries. They look pretty nice from what I see. I remember I had that one variety. I had 3 of them in my hand that filled up my whole hand.
Yeah, we don't grow. We grow a type of berry that's not very big, and unlike most of the food industry in America, it's not. It doesn't have its goal is to grow good tasting food. It's about making money, and those are not necessarily one and the same. And we grow a type of strawberry that is the first to arrive, and it also tastes phenomenal. And so I can't say that they taste better, okay, but the plants are stronger. Grows there as far as for us they produce really well, and that's what we want. We already had a really good tasting berry, and there are different varieties. There's lots of varieties of strawberries, and some just don't taste as good as other ones. But most people that buy ours are going to eat them fresh, and they want good tasting berries, and that's what we try to sell them. But no, we think the growers also helps them last longer on the vine. Strawberries are a real perishable crop. They just don't last very long once they're ripe, and especially after they're picked. And we believe the growers helps them to have a longer life before they spoil as well. But that just, we can't document that, but we believe that's from our observations what's happening. Yeah.
If you are ever interested in doing a little test on that, one of our old DMs did it with peaches. We just set some peaches on that we had growers and then peaches that were on a conventional program next to each other and just took pictures every week or so. And the difference was quite astounding. I think we had that picture in one of our past solutions, recent ones. But it's pretty astounding to see how much growers with limestone extends shelf life and sound life on the vine by the sounds of it too. It's awesome.
Mhm.
One of the things
why do you think that is? Yeah, go ahead. I want somebody to say why that is. I mean, I know it's because of the growers, but what makes that happen is what I don't understand.
What makes it have a longer shelf life?
The longer shelf life. How does that make that happen?
Yeah,
the sugar.
So basically
more sugar into the plant.
When a fruit ripens, what's happening is that the water and the carbo, I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but I believe the carbohydrates and the water in the crop is being converted into storage proteins or something like that. And that's as it ripens. And so the carbohydrates get converted into storage proteins, something like that, and the water dries out. So when you get a crop that's heavy in water, such as something that's grown with a lot of nitrogen or potash, when that water dries out, there's not much left for it to convert. And so you end up getting mold, you get rot, and it doesn't taste very good long term because there's nothing there. what the growers program encourages is nutrient uptake. And so you get a nutrient dense product, partially because growers itself as a fertilizer is complete. It's got micronutrients, it's got in a good balance. That's what it was developed for. So those nutrients are being taken up, balanced there, but the limestone, the calcium in the soil also encourages the same thing. It gets the microbes working, it improves the relationship between them and the crop, so you get proper nutrient transfer, and it increases, aerates the soil, stuff like that. All that to say is that you get the proper minerals in your fruit so that when you pluck it and store it, there's not much water in there to dry out, so it doesn't rot as quickly, and there's a lot more, it's not more nutrient dense, so it doesn't rot as quickly, and it tastes better longer term. That's the basics.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
It has
complete
cells. It has complete cells.
Yeah, they're not water-bloated cells. They're cells as they're meant to be with proper structure.
Well, like Doc Tejan says, you know, when a plant or soil is lacking in calcium, it generally will take something else up in return, and generally the first thing it takes up is potassium. So you're pushing that potassium in there, and I think of Saeed Khan that came up to the annual meeting one year, and he was telling us that potassium is a totally different element than all the other elements. It moves with water, so it has to go into that plant and to do that cell, to make that cell created, and then it has to move out. It's the only mineral that has to move back out. So what I guess my opinion is, when you have a soil lacking of calcium and you have these other elements in there, they get in there, and probably some of that gets lodged in there, but it don't complete that cell. So you have weak cells, you have cells that are unfinished, and it just makes sense that it would tend to want to rot up or not hold together. And Doc Tejan talks a little bit about that in that book also. You're basically not letting that plant do its complete function of building that cell.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah, to me, that helps.
Yeah, it's all cell structure. All cell structure. And that's like what you said. I was going to say before, with your seeing a lot more blooms, and once at the end of the season, when all the picking's done, the plant is still looking healthy. Like, I think those two things go hand in hand.
That was the biggest change we noticed. Okay, I mean, we had good crops before, and we had continued to have good crops. Of course, they vary every year a little bit, but the plants were just so much healthier looking all through the season, which can't be a bad thing, you know.
No,
they just
you look at a lot of
better.
different crops, and if they're stressed and they're nutrient deficient in some way, and they start reproducing, they're going to put everything they can into that reproduction, even if it means taking nutrients out of the stalk or the leaves or whatever it may be. But when you have a balanced and healthy soil and healthy plant, they don't need to do that. So you end up with good reproduction, but not at the expense of a healthy plant, which is awesome for perennials.
Yeah.
Russ, do you think you could take us through, like, from beginning of the season to the end, what your program is for strawberries?
As soon as the strawberries go dormant in the wintertime, actually in the fall, late fall, and then in the spring, once we cover them with, I'll kind of do it backwards. In the fall, we cover established plants with straw at a rate of about 150 bales per acre, and we cover the row. This is supposed to help with extreme cold, but the biggest thing it does is it provides a mulch or a layer down on the actual plants, and in the spring, those plants go dormant. It protects them some in the winter, and against extreme temperature changes, and it's also supposed to help with the heaving, like when the ground thaws and refreezes. There's a little bit of heaving that can happen that can lift your strawberry plants out of the ground, and I've actually seen it done. We don't have much trouble with that, but when you put the straw on, that helps stop that. Well, in the spring, when it starts to warm up, as soon as the plants start to turn green and grow, we take a little bit of the straw off, not a lot. And basically what you want to do is have your strawberry leaves and plants grow up through the straw. That provides a good, what that does largely for a U-pick operation like we have, it provides a mat, if you will, that the strawberries, when the plants start blooming and have the strawberries, they get heavy and it'll pull them down to the ground a lot of times, and that way they're not hitting directly on dirt, they're on the straw. It keeps the berries clean. But as soon as those plants start growing, we not only take a little bit of the straw off so the sun can get through better and everything, but we immediately start putting growers on in full air spray. We do that late in the day when the sun's not directly there or on an overcast day. And we used to do it once a week, and now we do it twice a week. And we're occasionally toy with doing it 3 times a week. Okay, it's just we're experimenting still. We're not putting on more product, we're just doing it more often, okay, with less product. You see what I'm getting at? And then we continue to do that all the way through. And with strawberries, once you go through the picking season and you're done, the next year's crop, and I don't know, I think it's in August, and I forgot the term, but it does something in the buds or the crowns, anyway, the stems, and it actually
it's producing nodes.
Yes, it is producing, it is doing internally what's going to make your next year's crop. So it's important to put proper nutrients and have a healthy plant in August, even though you're not picking any strawberries, because that helps you to, what you're doing is you're feeding the next year's crop, is what you're doing. And we just were tickled at the way we could keep a good, healthy crop, even in the hot part of the summer. Strawberries are real shallow rooted. They don't have very deep roots, and we don't have irrigation. And if we get into a dry spell or something, they suffer pretty quickly. But the healthier they are, the better they can go through those times. We had a real dry after the monsoons this year, and that lasted through 2/3 of June. We literally went through the rest of the year with 1.5 inches of rain, and before harvest on soybeans. So our strawberries also didn't get much rain, but we continue to full air spray them a couple times every week, and we think that's real important.
Do you continue that bi-weekly spray until dormancy?
Yeah, we continued it all the way through. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
What if you had to estimate how many gallons do you think you're using over a season?
I don't know. I used to know, but I don't remember. I would say it was at a rate of 10 gallons of the acre.
Okay.
Total put on, okay, would be my guess, okay, and that's not. And I say we continue that. I'm not going to say we religiously did it twice a week, every week. There were some times that we didn't do it, but we tried to continue as long as we thought. We were just, once the berry picking was over, I leave a lot of things out. There's a lot of weed hoeing and some cultivation and other things that happen after the picking. We're doing that, and then based on how the plants look and how everything's going, if we don't think the plants are looking as good as they should, we'll full air spray them again, no matter when it is. And but we especially wanted to do that through late July and August, so that we have that's when according to all the experts in strawberries, that's when you're making your actual plant or your actual fruit for the following year, or something is happening there that will manifest the next year when they come out in June again. Or when they bear in June again.
Yeah, it's they call it producing a node. It's a lot of your perennial crops are that way. If you got a perennial crop, Got one
Yeah.
thing one thing I wanted to say that you kind of complained about a little bit when I was there back in it might have been this year in March, but something that you showed me that you thought was a little bit odd that you told me you knew the growers was working was when you put this weed out there, you always get a little bit of wheat growing, and you had just a lot of wheat growing.
Oh yeah.
Between the lines and the growers.
Yes.
Out of the straw that you put down.
That was the most dramatic thing that showed how the growers was affecting it. I forgot about that. I'm glad you said that, Mike. And unlike Mike, I'm real old, okay? So I forget things. but anyway, we put the straw at 150 bales to the acre rate on the strawberries, okay? And of course there are some wheat seeds in that straw. Okay, they just bale it right out of the field, and then we spread it on, break it and spread it on, small square bales. And, of course, we get volunteer wheat in the spring. Okay, during the time when we start all this, we are all from as soon as they start growing, weeds also start growing. And this is not a crop that gets worked up or plowed under or anything like that. We have to physically remove all weeds from the field. And that takes a lot of work, okay? Well, one of those weeds is volunteer wheat. And of course, we're foliar spraying at the same time we're doing that. And I could not believe how incredible that wheat grew because it was also getting the growers on there. In other words, it makes you want to keep your weeds hoed at an inch tall or real small because they grow incredibly fast also with the growers. A guy that used to work he still works for me, grew tobacco, and he tried foliar spraying with something one time, and he said it worked really good, but he wasn't going to do it anymore because it made his weeds grow good. And of course I scolded him and said, hey, you've got two different problems there now. One is weed control, the other is nutrition, okay? And he wanted to stop his good nutrition for the plant because it was making his weeds grow so well. And I said, well, that's another completely different issue. And but yeah, the wheat really grew incredible with that growers on there. And we have put all of our ground, we have a small farm, we put all our ground out to wheat, and we're anxious this spring to start foliar spraying the wheat and seeing how that works on the wheat. I've never put growers on wheat before, and but I'm anxious to see how it'll do. I'm confident it'll do well. Yeah, that was one of the ways.
If it doesn't do as well as you like,
I forgot about that.
Strawberries out there with it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I remember being there.
Yeah.
Oh, I just remember being there in the spring, and he was saying, I never seen wheat grow like this before out of this straw.
Yeah, that's right. And we were causing it by foliar spraying the strawberries and the wheat with the growers mineral solution, and so it definitely works. Okay, like I say, I tried multiple products of other companies when I first talked to, I believe it was Mike's dad, and all. I thought, well, I can save money. They're pretty expensive, and so I used some other companies' products, thinking it didn't matter, but it does matter. Okay, they just didn't work. We couldn't see any effect on it, and but the growers definitely works, and but it's super important to have your calcium level up in the soil as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I won't argue that.
Only any growers guy would.
Yeah.
You said you use a backpack sprayer, right, Russ?
That's all. That's the only way we've done it. Yes.
Is it just a handheld thing? It'd be pretty. You're probably just trying to spray the strawberry rows, right? So that wheat theoretically isn't even getting a full blast, is it?
No, we've tried to just. One of the reasons we use we don't have a huge patch, and we just have a regular backpack sprayer that you hand pump and just with your one hand and just spray it, and we are literally just trying to put it only on the strawberries. But of course, if there's a wheat growing up in there that we haven't hoed out yet or pulled out yet, then of course it's going to get a dose of it as well. And that's what Mike was talking about, how good that wheat looked. And I grumbled at him about it. I said, man, we've never had wheat grow up in this stuff so fast. And which just made us have to work faster to get them out quicker, okay, so that the wheat wasn't getting big. And but yeah, I forgot about that. That was funny. But it's true. We just use a hand sprayer and just walk over them and spray them in the evening to get it to not put. My wife is old also, and she does a lot of the spraying, and I do some of it too, and to put the small amount that we're putting on. We would like to run pure product, but we can't walk fast enough with the hand sprayer to put it on. We'll put it on way more than we need, okay? And so we have to dilute it with maybe 50 or 60% rainwater, okay? But we would like to I think we could put pure water on and not have any problem, pure growers on and not have any problem, but the reason we put it in there is because we can
pure water.
yeah, oh, certainly, yeah. I meant pure growers, yes. But anyway, it's really a combination of things. I'm a super big believer in putting plenty of high calcium lime on, not dolomite, the high calcium lime. And we literally live right behind a stone quarry, but it only has dolomite lime, and we get our lime, 10 miles away or 12, 15 miles away at a place that has high calcium lime. It's a different color and different, and it costs double, and it's worth it. I'll just say it that way.
It's not always a convenience thing, that's for sure.
No, it isn't for us. Okay, but yeah.
One of the Thankfully, you don't have to buy it every year, though. It lasts.
And one of the things we run into down here in Kentucky with the lime is whenever they do an analysis, they always have a calcium equivalency. They don't have that calcium mag ratio on there like they do in other states, especially Ohio and Indiana. And a lot of guys down here thinking they're going to get calcitic lime because every lime that they have tested always has a calcium equivalency on it. And, of course, some of the numbers are over 100%. So it's a little bit misleading and confusing to try to find high calcium lime down here versus places like Indiana or Ohio. So because they do their tests a little bit different. And that's something that over the years that we thought we had a good high calcium source of lime, and come to find out later that it was really a dolomitic lime. It wasn't even calcium.
Yeah.
They just had a calcium equivalency.
I think that calcium equivalency is kind of basing it off of it's a pH factor, saying how well does this product change the pH compared to calcium carbonate. Yeah, so like a dolomite would, because magnesium has a high pH, would raise the pH more than a calcium carbonate. The calcium carbonate doesn't really, it's close to neutral, but dolomite can be higher than that. That makes sense then. Remember that when we were down there, Mike.
Yeah. Well, that's it sure makes you appreciate these places that actually do the calcium magnesium ratio test and have that on there. It's a lot easier to decipher. So
I'm seeing in a lot of the literature that a lot of soil-focused places recognize that you need a certain calcium to mag ratio. It's always a lower ratio than we would say. They're saying like 6-to-1 or 4-to-1 or something like that. We want to see 8-to-1. But it's nice to see it being talked about, even if I don't agree with our numbers.
It's just like some of the agronomy out here claiming that 76% base saturation of calcium is plenty. You hear that all the time from agronomists.
Well, Mike,
and I
it's
know
basically the same as 85%.
Yeah, well, being down
except
here
it's 10% lower.
Being down here at the show, we got these signs up about calcium, and of course, Marty, he's got this big sign up there. He's got lime for calcium, not pH, and I got so many people last couple of days have walked up and they said, well, what do you want our pH to be? And of course, it does give you a good a starting point to start talking about it, but to try to get their minds is that they got to forget about this pH thing being more important than that the actual calcium levels in that soil from base saturation is the thing you got to try to explain to them, and that's a pretty hard nut to crack when they've been brainwashed like they have for so many years about this pH thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the education in that. Yeah, all the education in agriculture is about pH.
Yep.
I mean, that's the only thing they talk about. They don't talk about, I never heard of that. I mean, I took 4 years of ag in high school. I mean, I didn't take it in college, but until I met the growers people, I never heard of anybody talking about the calcium level in soils. And it was an education, an eye-opener for me. And the thing about buying this lime that costs twice as much as the lime is right inside of my farm, I mean, but the difference that it makes on the ground is tremendous. It gets, like I said before, tilth, and it starts draining internally, and that slick look goes away, and the wet look goes away, and water doesn't stand on it, and not 100% because of the lime, but it was a major factor. Dr. Teachin says there's no bad lime, or there's no bad soil. It's just soil that hasn't been fixed by high calcium lime.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm paraphrasing. He doesn't say it exactly that way, but that's the bottom line to what he was saying.
That's what he set out to prove with Helena Farm.
Yeah.
His other book.
Well,
in addition to more food.
Yeah. I mean, we spend a significant amount of money on lime. We buy it and then have it spread, but I know we have at least 2 acres of ground that is producing a good crop every year that we used to never get a crop out of it. And that's out of a 27-acre field. So what percentage is that? Look at that. Look at the income you get off that 2 acres that you never got before, and versus it much more than offsets the cost of that. Plus, it makes all the rest of your ground better as well that was producing anyway. See my point? It's really not.
Value of lime. Yeah, it's figuring out the value of lime. Prices are certainly a component of that. I can give a plug-in for our president, Rick Boble, who's taught us about this. Just like GMS, like the product, it's price is a portion of the value that you get out of it, but it's you get what you pay for. You get more than what you pay for, right?
Well,
With
I can
lime,
prove that.
especially.
I bought products that cost $4.50 a gallon that were supposed to be the same before I was really sold on the growers. I thought, well, I can do this and not pay that $12 a gallon or whatever it is, and I can save money, and just buy. And I bought some locally here, and it just did not work. That's just all I can say. So I would pay $12 for the growers before I would get theirs for free and use it. That's how much I feel the difference is. Okay, if they say, here, we'll give it to you, I'd say, you keep it. I don't want it. I wouldn't say it to them. It's no good, or it doesn't help us. Okay, and I know the growers helps us. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
You totally changing the story. I know we probably got to be getting off of here, but there's some young people at the booth today, and we was talking about that Helena Farms, and they pulled it up on their phone on MapQuest to see if there was such a place, and there it was, and they was pretty impressed. It shows the mapping of that farm on the corner of Murray Road and 250. So I just had to throw that
now,
out
Mike?
there. What's that?
Do you know who owns it now?
No.
Figure that out.
No idea.
Okay, we're reaching the end of conference call time. I think we'll allow for maybe 1 or 2 questions if anybody has them. So push *6 to unmute yourself if you have a question. I'll just give a minute.
And we must have covered everything.
I guess
Yeah,
so.
sounds like it.
Or put them all to
you.
sleep, one of the two.
I don't think so. I've enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Russ and Mike, both for coming on. That was a great call. Russ, it's encouraging to hear how much success you've seen with the program.
Yeah. And by the way, I didn't start growing strawberries. I'm almost 68 years old, and when I was a young boy, we started with 2 acres. My dad did. There's not a white boy that's hoed more weeds than I have. I did it all growing up, and Dad had 22 acres of strawberries. I was raised up by Indianapolis, and he made an ungodly amount of money on them. Those people out of Indianapolis would come out and pick them. And then when we were in Fort Wayne, we had 12 acres up there, and then we moved down here, and we were in the hog business then, and our culture changed, and the pick your own business just doesn't work. People don't want to pick them anymore. And yeah, it's not like for me to say it made a drastic change. Remember, I've grown them all my life, okay? And it was incredible to see how much healthier and better the plants looked, okay? And I said, I'm certain it's helping everything else as well, even just because not everything makes a visual difference. I mean, it was the same way in the hog business. A small difference you may not be able to see, but it really helps your bottom line tremendously. And it's the same way with growers. I mean, yes, the wheat grew really well and the plants grew really well, but other things that you can't see were happening as well. And things like your shelf life and all the other. But no, I'm really sold on it. I think it's incredible, but I don't say anything to anybody I know about it because it's not the typical education that you get in agriculture, okay? And
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, they just, so I don't even try, okay? I just, okay. And they don't know what we do, and that's fine. If they want to know, I'll tell them, but they don't. So that was also in Dr. Tejan's book too. Many farmers don't want to be shown. Okay, and I wrote it down in my notes. That's exactly the truth, you know. And I thought it was hilarious when he had customers that couldn't get farms to produce, and all. Of course, this was back in the 50s and 60s, and whenever it was, or before that even. And he couldn't get them to. They actually bought pitiful bad ground with the idea that he was going to fix it for them, and he did, and he succeeded. And then they wouldn't buy his product after that anymore because they couldn't take the flack they got from their extension agents and all the educated people and the other fertilizer companies and seed companies and everybody. They'd give him grief about doing it that way. And I thought that was funny, and he said they don't want to be shown, and there's a lot of truth in that, you know.
Yeah, there certainly is. We've seen it time and again.
Yeah, I also wrote this down too in my notes. I have a bachelor's and master's degree. I used to be a teacher, and he said, mental laziness is you get your degree, your diploma, and then you stop learning. I thought, boy, there's been a lot of that happen. You know, well, we've done it this way for 30 years, and you know, it's true. And I learn more every day now than I ever have. Okay, and the more you delve into something, the more you realize there's things to be learned about it. You know, it's just the way it is. And yeah. But anyway, well, I enjoyed doing the thing with you. I hope it went like you wanted. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, Russ. It's been great.
Yep. Sounds good to me.
All right, so thanks to you too, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
well, thanks
everyone for listening in. Yeah. Good night, Russ.
All right. Good night. See y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so the next conference call is in March. Will be on March 12th at 9 p.m. again, Eastern Daylight Time. The picture in March shows 2 soybean fields. I believe that this is the one on the right is Jim Hallbeisen, our Director of Research's field, and the one on the left is one of his neighbors. He will be on the call to discuss that. Thanks everybody for listening in, and have a good night. Goodbye.